My name is Pete Murray. I'm your host today, and I'm joined as usual by Anton Strenger, lead designer of the Civilization 6 New Frontier Pass. Anton, thanks for coming out today.
Of course, happy to be here.
And driving our stream today, as usual, is Carl Harrison from Firaxis QA and our intrepid driver as usual. Carl, how are you? Yeah, so Firaxis is on the east coast of the United States, and we are in the middle of a winter storm. And while it is very seasonal outside and snowy, we did want to talk to you guys about some of the changes that are coming up in our next community update. And so let's go ahead and we'll jump in. So we've got a new update coming for everybody in this next. Hold on a second. Carl, sounds like they're having difficulty hearing you in the stream. I can hear you. I'm waiting to hear from our engineering team whether or not you're in the stream.
Testing, can you hear me now?
Nope. Hang on a second. All right, so why don't you stand? Okay, it sounds like we've got you now. Okay, so take us into the game. What have we got?
So today we're going to be playing as Scotland, and that's because our new patch is going to be making a couple of changes to the way that amenities and happiness work. So I wanted to be playing as a civilization that capitalizes on happiness even more than any of the others. Scotland also gets bonuses for great people, and we're going to be showing off a couple of changes to secret societies, particularly the Hermetic Order and Ley Lines, and they are all about great people as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're
Go ahead,
also playing.
Anton.
We're playing on the Highlands map as well, which is a new map addition for the New Frontier Pass that came out already. But we have not shown Scotland on them yet in a live stream, so we thought that that would be a fun opportunity as well.
All right, and with this, we've got another major feature, and that is the city-state picker. So, Anton, what was the purpose behind the city-state picker?
Yeah, so just like with all of these community updates that we're doing this year, we wanted to have a big feature that is for everybody. So whether you're playing on console, even if you haven't bought the new Frontier Pass or any of the expansions, all players get access to the City State Picker. And the inspiration for this comes largely from the very successful Natural Wonder Picker that we did with an earlier update. The idea being that you can choose a pool of city-states that you want to show up in your game. And customized to get like the exact kind of game that you want. Now they still will be randomly placed, and if you have more in the pool than are on your map, then it will choose from those. But we can get really cool things here. So like I think Carl looks like he probably picked a lot of scientific city states. Is that right, Carl?
Yeah, so I wanted to do mostly science city-states because we're going to be pushing a science victory as Scotland here. But I also picked a couple of city-states that provide additional amenity bonuses like Zanzibar and Cahokia because I really wanted to get as many amenities and as much happiness as I possibly could.
Nice. I see Kumasi's there too. That's probably for trading.
Yeah, we've got Kumasi in here so that we can do some trading with some city-states, and we'll talk more about that once we get to some social policies later in this game.
Yeah, the picker allows for some really fun things. One of my favorite things to do is to pick all the city-states that give you unique improvements. So there's lots of fun combinations you can do with it.
All right, and so we did change a bunch of social policies that we'll be showing off over the course of the stream, and Carl's built that into his strategy. So, Carl, what difficulty are you playing on, and can you tell us a little bit about how this game has evolved?
Yeah, so we're playing on Deity today, and I can go ahead and show that off just to confirm it. Deity difficulty. And I wanted to do that so that we show the best competition possible for great people, because we are, like I said earlier, showing off ley lines. You can see I have a ton of ley lines in my empire here, and that's because one of the changes that we made to them is that they no longer spawn in snow. If I come up all the way to the top here, you can see that there is a lot of snow, but not a single ley line up there. The same number of ley lines should be spawning on your maps, but they will no longer spawn in snow because that's not really a place that you want to be putting cities, and we recognized that. So we removed that from their valid tiles. So you can see that that really paid off for me. This is actually the very first map seed I rolled. I did not have to re-roll a single time. I started right here and settled in place. I could see Torres del Paine and the Natural Wonder right away.
Nice. Yeah.
I discovered we were playing with both secret societies and heroes in this game, so I discovered Maui from that, and I discovered Hermetic Order immediately and was able to pick them, saw my ley lines, and I was like, oh yeah, we're playing this.
Awesome.
So let me go ahead and open the social policies here, and we can take a look at some of the changes that we've made. Now, we showed off a little bit in our first look video, but let me come down here to rationalism and mouse over that so we can see the full effect now. Rationalism increases the bonuses you get from campus buildings by 50%. Previously, if your city population was 10 or higher, we have increased that to 15 or higher, so you do need to be taller. We've also changed it from a +3 adjacency bonus requirement to a +4 adjacency bonus requirement, and that is the same for all social policies that boost yields from buildings, like rationalism, free market, simultaneum, etc. So you do have to get better adjacency bonuses and taller cities. Another change that we've made is to the policy Whistle Bankin'. Previously, this was just to your allies' city-states. We recognize that there are plenty of games where you do not have that many allies, and now that we made it so that you cannot spy on allies, we know that people are being a little bit more choosy in who they form alliances with. So this now also applies to your suzerain city-states. It makes your trade routes with city-states that much better. I'm going to go ahead and slot in triangular trade here and rationalism, and I'm going to confirm that. And now that we have a trade route available, let's go ahead and sort this by gold so we can see what these trade routes are like. Now you'll see I still have Buenos Aires up here at the top. That's a normal civ, major civ cities, and several others are at the top of this list, but then when I get to Cahokia, and you can see I'm getting that +2 food, +2 production there. This also applies to democracy. The democracy bonus will also work for city-state specifically.
And just so people are wondering, the competitor civilizations that we've chosen in this game are either civs that do particularly well with hill tiles, like our friends the Inca, or civilizations that have appeared for the new Frontier Pass and are good with hill tiles, like Ethiopia. But because this is the Highlands map, we just wanted to make sure that Carl had some good, solid competition for it here. Now, you said you got Maui. Is Maui the reason why you have this almost like legendary start when it comes to resources near Sterling?
There's so many out there.
It is, yeah. So this is actually a normal start for me. It was normal map settings, excuse me. And I had normal resources when I first spawned in. I'll show you which ones I got. Sorry, I already clicked and turned there. So let me do some quick voting here. I do not want to lose my amenities, so I'm going to go pretty hard on that one. And we want to trade with Science City-States, because there's 2 of them just to our south. We're using Himiko to get those. So when I spawned in here, I had all this salt over here, silver. There's some silver here. And then when I explored, there's tons of salt over here as well, more silver up here. I liked the resources pretty well. Those are mineable resources. Mines are great for production. And then I discovered Maui from just spawning into the map because Torres del Paine was here, like I said. So I recruited Maui as early as I could. I pinned where I wanted all my districts and everything. And then I moved Maui to locations where I had not planned any districts. And I started, of course, placing luxury resources. I ended up with amber and diamonds on this side and jade on this side. So I got 3 unique luxury resources that I did not otherwise have access to, which has given me fantastic amenities, but they're also mineable resources. And so I went with the Religious Idols Pantheon, which gives me +2 faith on luxury and bonus mineable resources because I had so many of them. It was just really advantageous for me.
So we'll talk about why amenities and happiness are important in just a second, but somebody on chat says the Wisselbanken change is good, but those yield policy cards will require us to carefully plan our cities, right? And the answer is more or less that you'll need bigger cities. So yes, you'll want to carefully plan them in order to get to the size that you want in order to take advantage of them.
Yeah, the high population is going to be important, so you're going to want to feed your cities. So even though Carl has the rationalism, I think Sterling right now is the only one that's going to get the bonus from that. And then you want to place kind of like high quality adjacency districts as well. Now, the interesting thing that Carl's doing here is that, like, by playing as Hermetic Order, the ley lines are actually helping him get higher adjacency bonuses. So it makes more cities valid for rationalism than might otherwise be the case. And that's because one of the big changes we made in this update, we took another long look at secret societies, but in particular ley lines and the Hermetic Order. So yeah, Carl, if he opens up the Empire lens there, we have some insane adjacency bonuses on those districts. And the main reason for that, other than Carl's careful planning and pinning, is that ley lines will now give a major adjacency to districts instead of a standard adjacency. So instead of giving +1 to that campus, it's giving +2 science. And so that this is one of the many examples, this update, of looking at the feedback from the community, not just of older Civilization 6 content, but of the new Frontier Pass content, because we're in far enough now that we've collected a lot of really good feedback from fans and from the community. And one of the big pieces of that was with the Secret Societies mode, we realized that the Hermetic Order, the Secret Societies mode injects a lot of power into the game, but the Hermetic Order was definitely on the lower end of that. So we wanted to revisit them, and so the ley line buff is a big part of that, as well as the placement of the ley lines when you're spawning in. And it was actually kind of funny for me as a designer, because looking back when we were iterating on the Secret Societies at first, the Hermetic Order used to be by far the most powerful. And Carl and his team were rightfully saying, like, I think this is too much. So we toned them down. But now, like, that it's been released, it's in the wild, we've wanted to bring them back up again. So the major adjacency bonus is actually something we've tried before, and we thought it was time to bring it back.
It's pretty funny how things have gone around and come back around. But it's nice that you guys have had an opportunity with New Frontier Pass to keep addressing the the community feedback. This has been a fun opportunity for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
somebody is.
We've got a golden age here. I'm going to go ahead and pick Heartbeat of Steam, which will give production to my campuses equal to their adjacency. And as Anthony was just saying,
nice.
Those adjacency bonuses are very, very good. So if I mouse over this here, we can see that I'm now getting 10 production, 10 science, and 10 gold. And the 10 gold is from the Alchemical Society unique building.
Right, because that also copies the adjacency.
Right, exactly. So the Alchemical Society gives gold equal to the science adjacency of the campus, +2 production, additional great scientist, and I believe great engineer points, which is something else that Scotland does. So we're really trying to capitalize on that as much as possible. So now I've got these amazing campuses all over the place. This one up here, I don't know if people saw, is a +9 because I have 2 geothermal fissures as well. I don't have a Alchemical Society there yet, but I'm working on the library, so it'll be there soon.
And 2 ley lines right near it too. So
2 ley lines, yeah. I also
fantastic.
have a governor promotion available. So let's go ahead and do this new ability, Magus.
Yeah, so those of you who have played with Secret Societies mode a lot may notice that the names are different here. One of the other exciting things we were able to do with this update is to have our writer go dig in and come up with new names for the promotions for each Secret Society that are a little bit more flavorful. And if you go dig into the Civilopedia, there's some fun sort of historical context for them as well. So now that Carl's picked that's Andrew, our writer, steeped in the greater mysteries of each society. But wow, you have some insane yields already now with the ley lines.
They're pretty good, but the AI has been competing for great people pretty hard this game, particularly Korea going for great scientists. So I don't have as many yields here as I would like. However, I do have a couple of great people coming up. I've got a merchant coming, a writer, and an artist, so that will add gold, and then two culture as well. And I'm competing with Korea for Albert Einstein right now. Einstein, we have changed for this patch. He used to buff universities, as did Isaac Newton. We have changed him to now buff research labs. And I have research labs coming up in a not too distant future. So I want to try to get this one, but I'm not sure we'll be able to snatch it from her.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the ley line yields, Carl, just mouse over them again. One of those real quick. Say to the one just to the west of Sterling. That's gone from 2 food and 1
Oh, this one
gold
here. I'm sorry.
to, yeah, that run right there, to, oh, food and production and gold and science for an unworked tile. So that is absolutely fantastic.
For those that haven't played with the Secret Societies mode, the bonus that Carl just unlocked, what it does is it gives yields to leyline resources based on the great people that he's earned. So he's already gotten some science, some culture from the people he's earned, but as he gets more, those are only going to get better. And the leylines, they don't need adjacency bonus, or they don't need improvements on top of them. They just have really good yields that'll get better over time.
You can't make the mystic perfection of the world any better by adding improvements to it. So Carl, with the amount of production that you're cranking out each turn and the science you're turning out, it's like a science victory is kind of like the no-brainer to go for this.
Right. Scotland is sort of geared towards that already because they get additional science and production bonuses. But because I am going Alchemical Society, or excuse me, Hermetic Order, Alchemical Society is the building. Because I'm going Hermetic Order as well, I get even more science and production-based bonuses. So I definitely want to try to push a science victory if possible, and hopefully we'll be able to get a spaceport down and start the projects for that.
So just open the tech tree real quick, because it actually looks like there's been a couple of things that changed too. So you guys changed some of the tech boosts that are required for some of these technologies. So I'm looking at refining, for example.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So we took another look at many of the, particularly like the later game tech boosts, and we reduced a lot of their requirements. Refining used to be 2 coal power plants, but now it's down to 1. Another sort of favorite change of mine was professional sports over in the civics tree used to require 4 entertainment complexes, which was kind of overkill. It's sort of an artifact of older civilization vanilla balance where, overlapping entertainment complexes could be good. That's no longer the case. So now you only need 2 to make that work. And we've also kind of like added some of the information era boosts as well. A lot of these used to be only boostable by a great scientist or by spy, but now many techs like nuclear fusion, like lasers, have new boosts that allow you to kind of like get them a little bit more easily. And as Carl has sort of noted to us in the playtests, this really helps, especially coming on the heels of the Babylon release last month, because we had noticed that a lot of players with Babylon, the play style is very fun and you chase boosts, but you definitely hit a fairly big wall later on as the boosts dry up. So yeah, I think that was a good suggestion that came from our QA team.
All right.
We also swapped the boost for telecommunications and satellites here. Telecommunications used to be build to broadcast centers, and this was boost with a great scientist or spy, and we swapped those 2 because telecommunications were recognized as a leaf tech is picked up a little bit less often, and that was also inspired by Babylon gameplay and the need to push through to the end of the tech tree.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Yeah, so Carl's really racking up the city-states here. And speaking of the entertainment complexes, as Scotland and, with Maui and all these luxuries helping out, happiness is going to be very important for Carl. So how are you doing on amenities, Carl? Have you managed to keep it pretty good?
I think so. We want to make sure that entertainment complexes are worth building, and we have made a couple of changes to them to push for that, including the major adjacency for theater squares, which is why I have it adjacent here. I currently have 8 amenities in my capital, 8 in Haddington, 8 in Aberdeen. So my cities are doing pretty well. And let's take a look at the bonuses that I'm getting as a result of that. You can see that I have 30% science from amenities and 30% production from amenities. Scotland gets 5% bonus yield in science and production for happy cities and 10% for ecstatic cities. That means that the other 20% here is from just being ecstatic. We've increased the yields that you get from being happy to 10% and ecstatic to 20% to make the rewards for pursuing the higher number of amenities needed for those more worth it. You can see that I'm getting the 20% here in culture, gold, and faith as well.
Faith, yeah.
So we definitely wanted to make sure that people were being adequately rewarded for going for those high amenity requirements and trying to make things like entertainment complexes worth pursuing.
And this is another example where the feedback from the community has been so valuable, because we did this amenity rework that was pretty significant in a previous update, but we didn't quite hit it. I think we overcorrected some. So this change to make the happier end of amenities much more rewarding should help make it a lot more fun to play. We've also reversed the negative amenity thresholds back to where they were before. So instead of revolt being at -8 or lower, now it's back to -7 or lower, and all the sort of negative happiness levels are kind of back to where they were before as well.
Speaking of amenities, that is an incredibly well-placed Coliseum. I just, as we were setting up for the stream, I was admiring where it was. That's like almost perfectly placed.
And it's giving it's helping 2 different theater squares as well.
Yeah.
I did want to make sure to get the theater square placement around it, and then try to boost as many cities as possible for those happiness bonuses. Unfortunately, it looks like we got Alan Turing here instead of Albert Einstein. I had actually put in a lot of campus research grants, not realizing that had already happened. As we've been talking here, so I'm going to go ahead and change some of these back to other things.
Sure. Anton, we've got a question from chat. Does the lack of ley lines in snow penalize Canada, Russia, or other civs with a tundra bias? I don't know that you'd say it's a penalty, because it would only be if they were specifically pursuing the Hermetic Order from the start of the game. I mean, it's probably less likely they're going to run into that, but I would say it's more like an improvement for everybody else, because you're no longer establishing cities up on the tundra just for access to the ley lines, correct?
Right. Yeah, and it's important to distinguish between tundra and snow. Tundra tiles will still get ley lines, and I think there's actually one to the northwest of where Carl is. Or yeah, like those 2 by Dundee are still there. So tundra is still totally valid, and so a Canada or a Russia start will have just as good a chance of ley lines as anything else. It's the snow, the extremes of the map to the very north and very south, where normally it's not good to settle anyway. It's kind of more hinterlands that the ley lines won't be. So we thought it was a good trade-off. We definitely had a lot of discussion on the team on how to make ley lines kind of better. We ended up going with this sort of like change to the random distribution. There was also talk internally, inspired by some of the community points, where some people were thinking, well, like, would it be cool to see all the ley lines on the map right away, even if you weren't Hermetic Order? Because then you could make an informed decision and all that sort of stuff. We didn't like that for 2 reasons. One was it takes the sort of mystery and fun out of that moment of like committing yourself to the Hermetic Order and seeing the map change for the first time. It also creates a lot of complications for players that aren't playing the Hermetic Order, because if you see ley lines everywhere, you can sort of like choose to counter and troll players that are the Hermetic Order. You also might run into complications when you're trying to build districts and improvements. So we wanted to keep it a secret for the Hermetic Order, and just reworking how they were distributed should lead to much better outcomes.
All right. So now, since you've gotten a bunch more great people, Carl, that those ley lines are getting even stronger as we go here.
Yeah, they are. Let me come back over and take a look at those, so you can see I've got more science and 2 more culture on each one of these. And again, I have tons of them right next to my capital. Up here, 2 at Aberdeen, 3 in Haddington. There's some down here, and then 2 up here in Dundee. This one I'm not going to be able to actually acquire with Edinburgh, but you can see that I really am getting a lot of yields from that, and that's, again, not including just the +2 adjacency that we have added to ley lines. Instead of a +1, we've upped it to +2. So all of these districts are being boosted as well. So you can get a lot of extra yield off of ley lines now, and it really makes it worth it, particularly with that Alchemical Society building giving you the extra great person points. If you can get something like I have Oracle and Pengala with the grants promotion, all of that gets the boost the Alchemical Society great people points, making it that much better of a building.
Fun fact, flashback to when we were balancing the Alchemical Society, and I said they were way too powerful. One of the reasons was the ley line adjacency, which we have brought back. But the other reason, which we have not brought back, is the Alchemical Society building used to convert science adjacency into production, which was just nuts because you just get so much production all the time. And yeah, so we did not bring that back. It still only gives you gold, but like Carl was able to make that golden age choice that really helped with that this time.
All right. I wanted to talk about the.
I did notice that. I wasn't sure if we should stop for that, but we'll get more for sure here in a minute.
We definitely want to talk about some of the AI changes.
Yeah,
which will come
we'll show that next deal I get that comes up. I wanted to back out of that so that we could take a look at those adjacencies because, like Anton was just saying, there is the Golden Age effect that does the same thing. That was mutually exclusive with that effect on the Alchemical Society. You'd get it from one or the other. So basically negated the Golden Age. And so we wanted to differentiate the two so that players weren't missing out on an effect. And just having the 10 or however much production from your adjacency on was all the time was just too strong. Particularly because you were getting +2 off of ley lines. So if you had campuses like this massive +9 up here, which is getting doubled again. This is a +5 going to +10. This is a +9 going to a +18. Having that all the time from the start of the game was definitely too much. Having it be gold makes them very versatile and allows you to do things like purchasing great people or paying for a military and things like that, without missing out on the Golden Age effect when it comes up, as I've done now, and I have all 3 types of yields on my campuses.
Awesome. So got a couple more questions from chat. Have you changed the other societies in any way?
We actually have a change that affects all societies in a way. Another thing that we had noticed from the community feedback is that, and some of you might have noticed earlier when Carl had the governor screen open, there are not quite as many titles that he's earned this game. And the reason for that is that we changed the rules so that each time you meet a society for the first time, you used to get 1 free title. We noticed that was in many games happening actually quite quickly. So you could end up with 4 extra titles, in the first 50 turns of the game sometimes, which was just injecting a lot of power into the early game and kind of threw things off. So what we've done is we've changed it so that only the first discovery that you make will give you an extra title. And the subsequent 3, you can still discover and you'll learn, who else is part of them and all that good stuff, but you will not get an extra governor title for doing so. So that is a change that affects all secret societies. But in terms of the balance and the power, the Hermetic Order was our focus.
Okay. Somebody wants to know, can ley lines still be usable if they're more than 3 tiles away from a city?
Yes, you can use them for the adjacency bonus, and we can see that here. So this ley line is more than 3 tiles away from Edinburgh. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could acquire this tile eventually through cultural border growth. The city cannot. I cannot buy it, and the city cannot work it. So I will not gain these yields at all. But this commercial hub is getting a +2 adjacency bonus from that ley line. So you can still gain the adjacency bonuses. It's like having a mountain 3 tiles out and still using it for a holy site or for a campus adjacency bonus.
Okay. And let's see, there was one more that I was looking at. Is it better to use your great people with great works across your empire rather than all at once in one city? So, Carl, it was noticed that you're having people travel to different cities to create their great works. You're sort of I guess you could move those works through the great work selector, but you're just manually moving the city.
Yeah, so
manually moving the person.
So the thing with great works is that you cannot move them for 10 turns after they've been created. So for the purposes of theming, if you get multiple great artists back to back, you cannot make them and then theme them immediately. You have to physically place the great artist onto the districts where you want them. So by placing 2 of the works in one city and 1 in another one, I've left myself with an open slot available to try to move things around a little bit more easily if the opportunity arises, if another great artist gets recruited, without missing any yields. The yields are exactly the same.
Okay.
And that doesn't happen with great works of writing, so the writer I use in the same single city, but the artist I did move around, and that's just a little timing thing that you can do to try to theme your museums a little bit faster.
Pro
Yep.
tips from Carl.
Yeah, well, those kind of things you have to do if you're going to play on deity. So there's another AI change that's coming in the game, which has to do with the way the AI approaches cities that it captures. Or,
Real quick,
yeah,
let's come back to that in
sorry, go
just a
ahead.
second. I've got this trade route up, and I want to show it off. This is with the trade route bonuses of Kumasi here.
Oh, yeah,
So we
Kamasi.
are getting increased culture and increased gold, but you can see now that my trade routes with city-states are above my trade routes with normal civs. I've got the food and production on there as well. So those are some really valuable yields. I'm actually going to delay this guy because next turn we're going to take a look at a different policy that might affect this, and then we'll revisit that again.
Very cool.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so Anton, AI captures a city. Now it's going to be more likely to raise it if it doesn't like it.
That's right. Yeah, we had noticed in a lot of playtests that when a lot of the new Frontier Pass civilizations, as you all know, are quite fun and different when it comes to rules about placing cities or districts. And one of the best examples of that is the Mayans. Not having to play the freshwater game in the same way, and having this sort of concentration of cities around their capital. And kind of a different placement game than normal. But we noticed that when the AI was conquering them, they were kind of treating it as business as usual and saying like, well, a city's a city, might as well keep it. When really, based on loyalty, based on amenities, but specifically based on fresh water in this case, sometimes it's better to just raise it, especially if it's like 1 or 2 tiles off from a lake or a river, and it'd be better for the AI to just kind of like backfill and make their own city that makes more sense. So yeah, the AI will be much less forgiving with particularly Mayan cities when they're on the rampage, and they'll be a little bit smarter about which cities they keep and which ones they destroy.
Gotcha. All right, Carl, you've got some Highlanders, and you're gonna take a look at that policy and see if you
Yeah.
can get your trade routes even sharper.
If we can.
Even
Another policy that we changed for this patch is Raj right here. Raj boosts yields you get from city-states if you are suzerain of them. It did nothing if you were not suzerain of a city-state. We wanted to change that so that there was still some use if you weren't suzerain of a ton of city-states, or if, for example, you need to trade with only city-states because you're at war with a lot of other people or something like that. We wanted to again address city-state trade routes a little bit more and have them higher than they have been in the past. So we added a +2 gold bonus to trade routes with city-states regardless of whether you're suzerain with them or not. I'm going to go ahead and slot this on. I do have suzerain over a lot of different city-states, so I will benefit from the additional yields, but I'm also going to try to trade with a couple of them, and I could really use that +2 gold there. So now let's go ahead and look at this trade route again, and we can see that that's gone up to 16 from 14, Geneva from 12 to 14. So those are some really nice trade route yields. And again, democracy works the same way now. You can combine that with Whistlebankin and get +6 food, +6 production on your trade routes to city-states.
Those policies are really fun as well because they're diplomatic ones. So you can sort of use your diplomatic slots to get these kind of like city-state specific trading bonuses, but then keep your economic policy slots for, like Carl still has triangular trade in there. And that's how you can get really cool combinations like this.
All right. A couple more changes from chat that are going on. Somebody's asked earlier, is the great people which make that city gain 5% yield from a happy city because of amenities, did that get reworked? So I'm not sure I'm entirely getting it, but right now we're playing as Scotland, who get additional bonuses to both science and production for being happy, various states of happy, as well as having rolled back some of the amenity and happiness reductions that were in a previous patch.
I think I follow the question here. It used to be that amenities or happiness levels were 5% and then 10% for being ecstatic. We've increased that to 10% and 20%. Scotland has not changed at all. We're just playing as Scotland to show off their abilities, or the happiness bonuses even better because they get additional 5% and 10%. But it used to be only 5% and 10% for happy and then ecstatic, and we have doubled that, 10%, 20% for ecstatic.
Okay. And then the other question is, are there any changes to the Maya that are coming in this update? Any buffs to them?
Not in this update, but like we're pretty happy with where they are overall. But it's something we're continuing to look at. And like Carl, you had thoughts on kind of like where Babylon was after the recent release, and we're kind of pretty happy with where that balance ended up as well. So one of the civilizations we did take another look at in this update was Byzantium, actually, who are in this game. So there were a couple sort of like kind of like weird edge case buffs that they had that we wanted to kind of sand off a little bit. For example, when they conquered cities, if the captured city had the sort of like relevant building to trigger their cavalry unit bonus, they would get free cavalry from that. We didn't think that really made sense or felt fair. So it will now only apply to buildings that Byzantium actually builds itself. So if you conquer a city, cool, but like, you know, you'd have to build the building yourself. If it already has it, you're out of luck. The other thing with Byzantium is the Hippodrome, the district that replaces the entertainment complex. It used to be able to coexist in the same city with the water park, but we have changed that so that now, like the entertainment complex, you have to choose one or the other. So you can have a Hippodrome or a water park, but not both.
Okay. And Carl, things look like they're going pretty well. So I saw we actually lost Meier and got Meier back. But let's talk about the stop asking me buttons that are in here.
Yes.
This is a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so in our first look video, we showed off the ability to click no and stop asking me on things like friendship requests or other conversational type items. We've also added buttons to individual things on the deal table. This appears only when an AI comes to you with a deal, but you can mark an item as unacceptable, and then you'll get this pop-up saying making this item unacceptable and refusing the deal will prevent this AI, not other AI, but this AI from ever asking for this item again. So you can sort of lock down some of your items and say, no, I do not want to trade this. Please stop coming to me for it. And it just reduces the amount of spam that you can sometimes get from the AI.
And there are instances later on in the game where you really don't want, you know, an alliance with an AI. You know, you might be pursuing a victory that's going to be in opposition to them, or you know, you might want to spy on them in some cases in order to, you know, if you're behind on tech and you're looking to get something, or maybe you just like spying on them and you think that's fine. So
Exactly.
yeah. So Carl, your archaeologist is up running around now. You've got, oh man, I didn't realize how great Dundee is until like I was looking. I was so enamored by what was happening in Stirling. I didn't really appreciate just kind of like how well positioned that city was.
Dundee's got it all. It's got
city.
nice firs and tundra forests. It's got ley lines. It's got the best university in town in the, in the civilization. It's got a nice mountain range, a lighthouse on it. It's just a lovely place.
The Alchemical Society is finished there as well, so I should be getting 18 gold now.
Good.
Unbelievable.
So it's a lot of yields. And again, all of these are getting plus 30% boost because this city is also ecstatic with 9 amenities. This will make a fantastic national park eventually. I need to accumulate some more faith. We're about to unlock naturalists. I also want to purchase... I was able to obtain Hercules in this game, and I do want to purchase Hercules to try to build some spaceports. We'll rush spaceports with him.
What?
So, I love it.
That's awesome.
The lesser labors of Hercules. So where are you going to build these spaceports? Because I know one of the issues I have whenever I try to get a spaceport up and running is that the AI is like, oh, let me just sabotage it for the rest of the game.
Well, spaceports, yeah, like you're saying, they tend to get sabotaged a lot. I also noticed that I'm getting spied on here in this commercial hub, so I put a spy here to counter spy. Counter spying will affect the district that the spy is in, as well as all adjacent districts. So I'm thinking I might put a spaceport here for Stirling and here for Dundee, and just move these Cahokia Mounds to other tiles. And then put the diplomatic quarter right here, because the diplomatic quarter also reduces spy effectiveness, enemy spy effectiveness in adjacent districts. So I can put once this is finished, I can move the spy to this tile, and it will
Mhm.
counter spy both spaceports and the commercial hub, as well as being affected by the diplomatic order.
So what you're saying is Dundee is going to get even cooler. It's going to have a brand new diplomatic quarter, and you're going to invite foreign dignitaries, and they're going to be able to look out their window and see not one but two rockets taking off.
That's correct. Yeah, and all of the yields that that you get for city-state bonuses, all of these bonuses here now apply to the buildings in a diplomatic quarter. That's something that we did in a patch a while back, so the yields in Dundee will be even better as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So your archaeologist has been busy at work, just dug up a relic for you. Are you looking for something in particular?
I might be. We're gonna go do some exploring with him and see what we can find.
Now he's just finding tea everywhere. I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. That's so great. All right, so I just want to remind everybody that this update is going to be available on Thursday, December the 17th. That's tomorrow as of the time at this recording. It's going to be available at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and 5 p.m. British time, 6 p.m. for those of you Central European time. And this update with the city-state picker is available to everybody who owns Civilization 6. There's one other nice little quality of life feature that got added to it, which we should probably call out. Oh, here we're going to say, mark this item as unacceptable.
Last
Stop
judgment is
asking me
mine.
for it. Yep, stop asking. The UI team actually added a unit search function as well too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, so this is really cool. So yeah, if you go to the world tracker and you can open that little drop down and click on our unit list. This is a brand new UI feature. And what this allows you to do is to kind of look through the list of your units. You can also like resize the window if you want to see like all of them. And then you can search if you're like, hey, that archaeologist that kind of went off to the ends of the earth, where did he go again? And you can search it that way. Well, they have names, so I think they're a little tricky.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They do have names.
Or like if you want like Himiko, like where was Himiko? I sent her off to like a city-state somewhere. Or Maui, right? I think Himiko expired. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Maui's down there making tea, just like we remember. Yeah. So that's a fun feature. It's something that like we've had elements of before. Like you can technically use the map search to find units, but you know it's not as convenient. And then you can click on the unit name right there. You have to get that same list, but it's not searchable, and it's a feature that we realized that not a lot of players really knew about. So we really wanted to kind of add something a little bit more dedicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder, this update will be available on all the platforms that we have.
All the platforms, yes.
All right. So got another question from chat. If you picked, say, Lady of Reeds and Marshes as your pantheon, then Marshes and Oasis will show their nominal yields outside your territory, but immediately add the production if you buy their tile. Why do ley lines show your civ-specific yields outside of your borders? Ooh, that's a pretty...
That is a good sort of like technically minded question.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact tech we put in to have the yields of ley lines be relative to you, but it is the case. And we thought that it would be better, like, you know, as Carl's here, you know, like he has a pretty tight, tall empire. But if he looks to see ley lines out in the wild, like I think he had some over to the west, seeing kind of like, and being able to plan ahead, like, oh, okay, like that's what I would get if I go there. And having that preview be kind of like more robust lets you plan ahead a little bit better. And there are some bonuses like the Pantheon that the chat mentions, where it's sort of like more relative to the city. Or the Pantheon, which is a little bit kind of more constrained. But since the ley lines are sort of like a civilization-wide thing, it's something we can sort of easily account for. We thought, and since the yield changes can be so dramatic, we wanted to reflect that kind of, you know, so players can plan ahead.
It also makes it easier to see them. Ley lines are pretty slight effect themselves. So if I turn this off,
especially if you have like icons off and stuff like that, right?
Right. It can make it a little hard to see them when you're scanning, but when you have the yields on, it does make it pretty obvious. Like, oh, hey, that's a ley line. It catches your eye and makes it pop a little bit more.
So
they
you've got
they are beautiful effects, though. I don't know if anybody's just sat there and looked at them. If you have like a Wonder movie playing, I got to see it with both of these. And so it's
Yeah.
the time is sped up. This is just like flying up into the air. It looks really, really cool.
There's
cool.
it actually reminds me of the process when we were making the ley lines. We didn't play the Hermetic Order on the live stream for Secret Society, so I actually haven't been able to chat about it before. But the ley lines were really fun to make, and there's a really great back and forth with the art team. One of our artists, Mike Bazell, did the concepts for the ley lines, and there were a couple different versions we had. And this was at the time when we were figuring out like, well, what's the feel of the Hermetic Order, and like we were kind of like, okay, yeah, they're kind of like these mad scientists, but they're well intentioned and they have great people and stuff. So we had a lot more like nefarious, infernal looking effects rising up from the earth that were a little too spooky. Something that would be better for like something like a Void Singers or a Sanguine Pact. So having that back and forth with the artists and that concept that Mike came up with like the sort of like nice glowy golden light was just perfect.
Spooky is sort of Bazell's go-to aesthetic anyway, so that
he's
good.
very good at spooky. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. All right, so
what are you digging up over there, Carl?
Oh, we're just gonna
doing, Carl?
Go stealing some artifacts, I think.
liberate some culture.
Yeah, there's one right here, right at the edge. We'll that's the only one I want. Everything else is outside of his territory, it looks like. So we're just gonna snatch that one and then move on.
Since you're digging up artifacts, that reminds me, you'll come across a lot of barbarian artifacts and stuff. One of the other changes we've made for all versions of the game, not just the sort of like Gathering Storm balance, we've reworked how some of the fundamental game combat mechanics work. So it used to be that anti-cavalry had a big disadvantage when fighting against melee units. We have shrunk that gap a little bit. So now when a melee unit like a swordsman or a warrior is attacking an anti-cavalry class unit like a spearman or a pikeman, they only get +5 combat bonus against it. They still will have an advantage, but it's not quite as massive as it was before. So anti-cavalry units will be a little bit more resilient kind of throughout the game compared to what they were before. So the spearman that's guarding a barbarian camp in the early game is not going to be as weak as you might remember after this update.
Yeah.
We've also changed the hero Hippolyta,
correct,
who has a spear and shield, and before she was a melee unit, melee class. We have changed her to anti-cav class, For those in the community who have been wondering, I've seen this a couple of times. It is pronounced Hippolyta.
So you can take Carl's word for it because he's our classics guy here at the studio. So
it's true. He knows Latin, or you know more Latin than I do at any rate.
I used to know way more than I do now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
Not that Hippolyta's Latin, chat. Just before you get confused, there's classics is Greek and Latin. So
yeah. So Carl. I saw you've got Hunapu and Ishbalan K out as well too.
Yeah,
so you're sending them out
there's a barbarian camp over here that had killed Maui the last time I had him, so they're going to go over there and avenge him, even though he's already back.
The dead guys,
right?
As ghosts. All right, what do we got?
You're gonna have to wait a bit. The notification queue is already full.
Boy, it's like flaming great people. We're gonna look at the yields from the. Oh my gosh, those yields!
The icons are growing.
It's delightful. 5 gold, 5 production, 3 food, 3 science, 4 culture, just for giggles. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. So we're actually progressing. So you're getting a rocking, almost. Oh, the Club of Hercules! Yay!
That's why you did it.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So when we bring Hercules back to build us some rocket bases, he's going to be able to use his club for that as well too. That's awesome.
Together at last.
So you're cranking almost 550 science a turn on deity level with all of these changes in place. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So I have the highest science and the highest culture. I have more space to settle more cities. I actually don't have as many cities as I sometimes play with, but I didn't want to get bogged down in too much city management for this stream, and my yields were already doing quite well. So I felt like this was an appropriate place to sort of sit on them, and it ended up being very much in my favor as far as my overall yields, because I am highest in both of those, competing against Korea here, who's typically very, very good at science.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting 30 favor for getting up that one artifact, which was mine, because Hercules was my hero. So I'm going to take that, and then, I'm just going to, leave him alone for the rest of the time.
I just want to clarify that these actually are mine. All right, and we've got Rocketry ready.
I am behind, though. I have not repurchased Hercules yet. Oh, I need to move this out. So let's purchase Hercules. However, heroes, unlike great people or units, have their full movement immediately upon purchasing them. Other types of units are out of movement when you purchase them, but not heroes, because they have because of the limited lifespan that they have. So we didn't want you to waste one turn of your lifespan after reacquiring the hero, just because you had purchased it. So I am able to still move him over here right away, and we're going to go ahead and finish that.
I love it.
I want to do the broadcast before I do the
using his recently rediscovered club to smack together a quick spaceport real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Olympus, you say? Let's do it with a rocket. One more question from chat. I'd like to clarify a point from earlier, if possible. The negative thresholds for amenities were changed back. Were the positive thresholds changed as well?
No.
They were not. Yeah, only the negative ones. So the negative weight. Yeah, so everything that had a negative number basically went back up one notch. So the negative levels of happiness are going to be a little bit more common, if you have lower amenities. But the other end of it, of the happy levels, while having the same thresholds, are much better, because they have 10% and 20% instead of that 5 and 10 like they did before.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
The whole goal there is to try to make it more worth it to pursue amenities, particularly from things like entertainment complexes. We know that those sometimes get skipped a fair amount, and people don't always think that they're worth the production investment. So we're trying to find a happy medium for them. So we want you to worry about negative amenities, because we had lowered the thresholds for negative amenities. People were saying, hey, we don't need to worry about them because we can just avoid them. So we put that back up, so you have to worry about them a little bit more now. But the biggest problem was people were saying, the community was saying, pursuing positive amenities isn't worth it, because you're only getting a 10% boost at most, and that's at 5 amenities. So while it's still a 5 amenity threshold to be ecstatic, we did recognize that it needs to be more rewarding, and that's the reasoning behind that change and that push to make it 20%.
Exactly.
And Hercules
Spaceport
bounced out another spaceport. That's crazy. You might want to move that spy before we get too far out of the picture.
Let me move him to
the diplomatic quarter.
He's got to go to Dundee first.
Yeah. All right. So I want to remind everybody again, this update is going to be available tomorrow, 17th of December at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, 5 o'clock British time, 6 o'clock Central European time. This is our community update for everybody, which has the city-state picker that's in it. That's kind of a highlight feature for it as well, too. Whole bunch of changes to, the Sword of Beowulf.
Nice find.
That's pretty cool. Whole bunch of changes to social policies, some of which we've covered today. Some changes to Tech Boost. This is just kind of a neat patch, a neat update to the game for you to play over the holiday. We're going to let Hercules continue to build some rocket bases. I want to thank our team on the live stream today. Anton, thank you very much for coming out and talking to us about what's coming tomorrow for Civilization 6.
Of course, yeah, and thanks for the community for tuning in, and we are listening. A lot of these changes are directly inspired by things that you've said, so keep it coming.
And I want to thank Carl Harrison from Firaxis QA, who has been our intrepid driver today. Carl, thank you for playing on Deity for us.
It has been my absolute pleasure, Pete.
And my name is Pete Murray. I've been your host today. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We'll be back after the new year with new material for the new Frontier Pass. So stay tuned. We'll look forward to talking to you. Have a great holiday, everybody, and have a great day.